Hey friends, and welcome back to the Alex Makes VR podcast. In today's episode, we're going super practical. We are talking client retention. How do you retain your clients, Alex? This is a question that I do get quite often because I always talk about that first piece of the puzzle. How do you get the clients? And most people overlook the part of actually, the best way to build a business is to then retain those clients. So I'll be talking my best tips on how to keep your clients happy and make sure that they want to keep coming back for more work. We'll be talking all about that in today's episode. If you have a question or anything, just anything really, talk to me. Send me your messages. Messages. Yes, do that. You can do that at Alex Makes VR on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also putting out a really regular newsletter, which includes my best tips and tricks and insider scoops on the VR industry. If you want to sign up to that, you can do so at alexmakesvr.com. Okay, so client retention. Like I said in the intro, this is a part of business that is often overlooked. But the thing is, it's so much easier to retain clients than it is to go fishing for new clients, right? Okay, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here trying to create an analogy. But if we stick with the fishing analogy, all the effort and the uncertainty to go out, fish and actually land one decent fish, because you go out there and the fish are flopping around and some of them cheeky and they grab onto the line. I've never been fishing, just FYI. You're probably going to be very aware of that if you listen to this and you are an avid fisher. But yeah, the fish try to grab on the line and maybe some of them do, but then they fall off, or maybe you do get one in the end, but it's actually a pretty rotten fish. Maybe it's already a corpse at that point. Although how would it hang on to the line? Anyway, you get my point. Fishing, there's no certainty with fishing. But if you caught a fish and you decided not to eat it because you're a vegan and you care about environmentalism, but you decide to keep that fish as a pet, which might also have ethical implications, but you get the point. You keep that fish and all of a sudden you've now got this fish. And as long as you feed it and water it and keep it happy, and I don't know whether you play with fish because I've never had a pet fish, but as long as you keep it happy, you can keep this this fish alive and happy, and you don't have to go out fishing for another fish. Does that make sense? I should probably talk about VR rather than fishing, shouldn't I? Okay, let's get back on track. So with your clients, what I'm saying is, once you've got a client, and it's obviously important that you enjoy this client and you're passionate about the work, or you enjoy the work that you're doing for that client. But if you've got someone where actually you get on, they're a good client, they're not a total headache, you don't have a heart attack every time you see their name pop up on your phone, you're actually excited to hear from them, you're excited to do work for them. As long as that is the kind of client you've got, maybe instead of spending loads of time looking for new clients, maybe look at how you can best serve that client. Could you offer them more services? Could you expand the scope of your current projects with them? Could you have them on a retainer? Could you up the level of work you're doing? Could you ask them if they have any additional things that you could work on with them? There's so many things that you could do once you've built that relationship and that rapport with a client. I think when it comes to retention, especially when you are a 360 and VR professional, there's definitely a few things that you really need to kind of pay attention to. Because, the number one thing is obviously going to be deliver a great service, deliver value, make sure that you are an absolute delight to work with, you're shit hot at your job and you deliver on the goods. That's obviously number one way to retain your client. But outside of that, when you're a 360 and VR professional, you've got all of these other challenges that you kind of need to think about. Because the thing is, most clients, when they first start dipping their toes into the water, careful, we might end up on a fishing analogy again here. When they dip their toes into the water of VR and 360, they're not sure of the outcome. They are taking a chance on this new medium because you've told them that it's going to be of value, and they trust you, and they are intrigued enough and willing to take a chance on this. So one of the ways that you can retain more clients and build a really long, fruitful relationship is to make sure that you support them throughout the distribution of that project. This is especially important if you are delivering a VR product, because the nature of VR technology itself means that there are a lot of challenges as soon as you hand off that project and it's in the client's hands, or headset, should I say. There is a whole host of new challenges that client faces to roll out that experience. So it's all well and good that you deliver an incredible VR training product, let's say, and you show it to them in a headset. You're there in the meeting, you show it to them, they're excited, they're wowed, this is perfect, this is exactly what we wanted. But the second that you leave that building and they are left with that headset, do you know for a fact that they have their distribution strategy set out? Do they know how they're going to implement it in their training sessions? Is the person leading the training, or is the person responsible for distributing the VR? Has that person been trained? Have you had one-on-one time with that person to teach them how to use the headset? This is so basic, but it is literally the equivalent of having a grandma trying to work a smartphone. No shade to the grandmas out there, but you're probably going to need a bit of hands-on time teaching them the technology before they can get on WhatsApp and start bombarding you about, baby pics. Not to generalize. That's just what my mum does to her grandchildren. Luckily, I don't have to deal with that because that's my brother's problem. So what I'm saying is, when you go into creating a 360 and VR project, you have to have in mind where that piece is going to go. If it's a 360 piece, for example, if it's 360 photos, if you deliver those 360 photos, does that client know what to do with them? If they are trying to embed them on their website, for example, do they know how to do that? Or should you be doing that? Should that be a service that you include? Should that be something you upsell them on? Is that something that you should include in a package? Is that something that you would consider walking them through? Do you have a follow-up strategy? This is another big tip. So not only do you make sure that they know what they're doing with that product when you've delivered it, but making sure that you're going to follow up with them and support them if they need it. So, for example, with a client of mine, we have an app that hosts quite a lot of different VR experiences for them. We give them the headsets, and then we have a 6-month kind of routine that we follow, which is our support package, basically. And what that is once we deliver the experience, so we deliver the app on 3 headsets per client site, we will then have a half-day intensive training session with anyone that they think needs to be trained on the VR headsets. Usually they call them, something along the lines of the VR champion, or it's sometimes the head of training, or whoever it might be that is responsible for implementing that. We have a half-day hands-on training session where we go through everything, the basics of VR, getting them comfortable with the headset, teaching them what the buttons are, just silly things that when you're in VR and you're in 360, you don't really think about these things because you've been doing it yourself for so long. For example, with 360, if you showed someone a 360 video on your phone and how you turn it landscape, and then you can move around with your phone, and that blows people's minds. I've seen so many 360 YouTube videos where the first 10 comments are just, well, this was just a image of a floor the whole time. And it's because they were holding their phone parallel to the ground and they didn't realise that it was 360 and that they needed to move their phone around in order to see what was happening. That's how basic some of this stuff is. But we forget that is not common knowledge to most people. So making sure that they know. So yeah, we do a hands-on training session, and then a couple of weeks later, we will follow up to make sure that they have now started to implement it. So if it's for a particular event, if it's being used at an exhibition, if it's being used in training, I will follow up with them personally and be like, just wanted to check in, make sure you've not had any problems. Let me know. If they do need some more training, between the 2-week and the 1-month mark, that's when we will do some kind of recap training. Usually this will be done remotely, or maybe we'll send them some screen captures, or just like little video demos, or even some clients like a kind of a written manual, just so that they can print it out and leave it with the kit, so that if anyone has trouble, they don't need an internet connection to be able to see how to fix it. So, speak with your client, work out what's going to work best, work out what a support package might look like for them. If you are delivering something that's a little bit more one-off and a little bit less technically difficult to integrate into a company, like, for example, a virtual tour or some 360 photos or a one-off 360 video for social media, like those things are a little bit easier because obviously you are delivering this product, this photo, this tour, this video. But even so, you still want to make sure that you're following up with your client. If your client said that they're going to use these 360 photos to upload to Google business listings to promote their SEO and get them listed higher, make a note to follow up with them in 2 weeks. Check it out yourself, like go online and check whether they've done it. If they've not done it, maybe nudge them, follow up. Is everything okay? Are you finding anything difficult? Oftentimes they'll just be like, oh, we just haven't got around to it yet. But make sure you keep on them, because unless they implement it properly, they can't get the results. If they can't get the results, they won't be coming back to you for more work. The only way that they will keep coming back to you again and again is if they are seeing a benefit to that product. So again, like real estate is a brilliant example for this, because virtual tours are quite commonplace now in real estate. The reason that there is such an appetite for that, and we're starting to see that open up in the world of like virtual locations for like art galleries and things like that during COVID, like this digitized remote way of like seeing a physical location. The reason we're seeing that is because that is quite commonplace. It's quite easy for them to embed that on the website. There's loads of softwares that make that super easy. There is this natural workflow, but not every business will be aware of that. And it's your job to make sure that your client is getting the most from your products and services. Because if they're not going to recommission a VR project, if they're not going to spend some more money on some 360 photos with you, I would argue that is equally your fault, because if you've not made sure that they're not implementing it properly, it's not going to give them the best chance at seeing the results. And unless they see some kind of benefit, whether that be, doesn't have to necessarily be financial, it could be there's more traffic to their websites, they're getting more engaged, people reach out, they're getting kind of some kind of positive feedback or some kind of positive result from your work. Unless that's happening, then it's absolutely ludicrous to expect them to want to spend more money on something, because to them, it's just a waste of money. But it's not really a waste of money. It's just that they didn't implement the thing properly. And the thing is, again, this is applicable across any sector, across any creative skill set. I remember when I was still working in traditional kind of filmmaking, and the amount of times that we would create a really slick, beautiful animation that would be, part of an advertising campaign that would be used across social media. And the agency would just kind of like, they would commission it, and then they would just kind of like, they just like put it out on Facebook or something like that. And they wouldn't kind of put the strategy around it. They wouldn't treat it. They probably would do now, because obviously social media is taken a lot more seriously than it was back then. But they would treat it as this little nice to have, when actually, I wasn't in a position to do this back then because it wasn't my job. But if that was me now, I would like be making sure, okay, so this is the video this is the animation we're creating for you. and this is what you want to use it for. So let's have a strategy around how you're going to use it. Do we have an ad strategy in place? Do you know who the audience is for this? Who are we targeting with this? What do we want the outcome to be? Do we want more shares? Do we want, is it like something that drives traffic to the website? Like what are we trying to achieve with this? And let's make sure that we put all of that in place, the scaffolding around the house, so to speak, to make sure that when we do launch it, it actually has a shot at achieving what it's supposed to achieve. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, because this is so important, and it's something especially creatives really overlook, because they see their job as, oh, I just show up and I do my job. Like, I just show up and I make a sexy little video. I just show up and I make shit look good. And it's all well and good. And I'm not saying that you won't retain clients by doing that, because actually, if you've got a client that will take it upon themselves, that will be proactive and will already make sure that stuff is in place, the scaffolding, then you might find that you will get retained clients. But I promise you that you will get way more retention. You will also be considered like an asset, an invaluable asset to this person's kind of contractors, if you take the initiative, if you make sure that you are following up with them and making sure you're supporting them through integration, if you're following up and making sure they're getting the results that they want. And if they don't get the results that they want, have that conversation. Why? Why do you think that was? Was it like, were we going after the wrong audience? Was it integrated like properly? Was it just something that actually the creative just wasn't maybe right for that particular audience or that particular time? Like, did we miss a beat on something? Have that conversation with them and be open to that conversation. Don't just deliver the product and then let them do whatever they want with it to never return. If something doesn't work, if they say, oh, actually, I'm not sure whether we want to do that again because we just didn't get, it didn't really, didn't add as much as we thought it was going to. Have a conversation. Jump on the phone. Let's jump on a call. Let's dissect that. Let's figure out why you think that might be. Oh, turns out that they didn't realise that you had to inject a bit of, I don't know, metadata or tick a certain box when you uploaded to YouTube that told YouTube it was a 360 video. So it just uploaded as a panoramic video. And yeah, it looked shit. Like, all these things. There wasn't a direct call to action in the website that said, this is a 360 photo. Make sure that you look around it, or whatever it might be. Really dissect, and your client will be really actually quite impressed, because not many people do this. Not only will they be impressed, but they'll also feel the support. They'll feel like you are working through a problem, and that is your job. As a business owner, as someone who works for themselves, you are a problem solver, whether you're a creative or not. That is your job. You are solving problems with your creative services and products. So I'm going to get off my high horse now, but I hope that this helps. For those of you who are still trying to get your first client, maybe even consider some of these things when you're going into those first conversations. In another episode, we talked about the power of understanding a client's business, understanding the problem that they've got and how you are going to solve that problem. So if you take some of that knowledge, if you take some of this information we've talked about in this episode into that first sales call, you are going to be considered way more attractive to a client than someone else that's just going in there going, I make pretty photos and videos. Do you see what I'm saying? Always, always, always think through the bigger picture. Yes, when you come in and deliver your service, you are a small cog in a bigger marketing machine, or doesn't necessarily have to be marketing, but whatever cog in the machine that they are using VR or 364. But if you have an understanding of the entire machine, you are going to be able to pick the perfect cog and make sure that it is placed and it is used correctly. Wow, this episode has been full of very bizarre analogies. Maybe I'll do a whole episode about funny analogies for VR, filmmaking and business. Maybe I should just rename the episode that. What does fishing and VR have in common? Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now, but I hope this helps. If it did, let me know. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you've ever had a project that didn't kind of go very well, and maybe this now gave you some insight into why. Maybe you could reopen that conversation with your client. But either way, again, so much of what I love about doing this podcast is hearing from you and hearing about your real life situations and how you're using this advice. So please, please, please reach out to me, Alex Makes VR on Instagram and Twitter. You can email me, alexmakesvr@gmail.com. As always, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. Your support is incredible. If you enjoyed this episode or you think it was valuable, please share it with just one person. It would mean the world. Podcasting is a bit of an echo chamber, and it's not innately searchable. So it would mean the world to me if you could just tell one person about it, or post about it in a Facebook group, or put it on your Instagram story. Just something would really, really help. Thank you so much in advance for that. As always, wherever you are in the world, have a great day, and I will speak to you very soon.